Elena Martinez's hands trembled as she gripped the steering wheel, the vintage first edition copy of East of Eden, sitting in the passenger seat like an accusation. She'd left the Westchester estate 30 seconds ago, but her mind was still in that study, listening to her husband's voice echo through the crack in the door. Sophia is pregnant. She's having my son. This is my real family now. 8 years. 8 years of marriage, and David Chen had just erased them with 12 words. The snow fell harder as Elena navigated the winding roads away from the Park estate, her breath coming in short bursts that fogged the windshield. She should have been inside right now, laughing with David's family, sharing Christmas Eve traditions, presenting the carefully selected gift she'd spent 2 months tracking down. Instead, she was driving back to Manhattan with tears freezing on her cheeks and a plan forming in her mind like ice crystallizing on glass. She'd arrived early. That was the problem. 30 minutes early because she'd been excited, because she'd wanted to help set up, because after 8 years she still tried to prove herself worthy of being a Chen daughter-in-law. The maid had waved her inside with a warm smile, telling her the family was gathered in Mr. Chen's study. Elena had approached quietly, not wanting to interrupt, the gift box balanced carefully in her hands. Then she'd heard David's mother, her voice tight with concern. "But what about Elena? She's your wife, David. What are you going to do?" David's laugh had been bitter, dismissive. "Elena was a mistake I'm correcting, Mother. I married her because she seemed stable, successful. I thought she'd be useful. But Sophia? She understands me. She makes me feel alive. And now she's giving me what Elena couldn't. A son. My heir." His father's voice had been cooler, more pragmatic. "This will be expensive. Divorce, settlements. Elena's family funded your company. Remember? Her family gave me a loan," David had snapped. "I built Vision Tech. Me. Elena just wrote the check. She's a glorified banker who happened to have access to old money. Sophia is carrying my legacy. That's what matters." Elena had stood frozen in the hallway, the book growing heavy in her hands. David's sister had chimed in then, her voice sympathetic. "Do you love her, Sophia?" "I love what she represents," David had said. "Freedom. A fresh start. Elena's too, I don't know, rigid. Everything has to be documented, planned, protected. Living with her is like living in a law firm. Sophia lets me breathe." That's when Elena had turned and walked away, setting the book gently on the marble table outside the study. Her heels had been silent on the thick carpet as she'd made her way back to the front door, smiled at the maid, murmured something about forgetting an important file at the office, and escaped into the snow. Now, 40 minutes later, she pulled into the underground garage of her downtown Manhattan office building. The law firm where she worked as a senior partner in commercial real estate was closed for the holiday, but Elena had her own key, her own sanctuary. She rode the elevator to the 42nd floor, her reflection in the polished steel doors showing a composed woman in a burgundy dress and pearls. Only her eyes betrayed the storm raging inside. Her office was exactly as she'd left it 3 days ago. Immaculate, organized, every file in its place. Elena walked directly to the safe hidden behind the abstract painting on the east wall. Her fingers moved automatically through the combination. October 17, 2017, their wedding date. She'd have to change that soon. The prenuptial agreement was in a leather portfolio, pristine and untouched since they'd signed it 8 years ago. Elena had insisted on it despite David's protests. Her father, a retired federal judge, had drilled into her the importance of protecting herself. "Love is beautiful," he'd told her. "But legal clarity is a gift you give your future self." She spread the document across her mahogany desk, her attorney's eyes scanning the clauses she'd helped draft. There it was, on page 7, clause 7.3, investment conversion rights. Her family trust had loaned David $3.5 million to launch Vision Tech, his artificial intelligence startup. The loan terms were clear. If the marriage dissolved for any reason involving infidelity or abandonment, the loan would convert to equity at a predetermined valuation, granting Elena 55% controlling interest in the company. David had barely read the prenup before signing. He'd been so confident, so certain that their marriage would last forever, that he'd waved away the details. It's just paperwork, Elena. I'm never leaving you. This is just to make your father happy. Elena pulled out her phone and dialed. It rang twice before a gravelly voice answered. Marcus Webb. Marcus, it's Elena Martinez. I need you. There was a pause. Marcus Webb was the most feared divorce attorney in New York, a silver-haired shark who dismantled more fortunes than the IRS. It's Christmas Eve, Elena. This must be serious. My husband is having a baby with his assistant. I need a divorce, and I need it to hurt. Marcus's chuckle was dark. Come to my office tomorrow. Bring the prenup. We'll make him wish he'd died a bachelor. Elena hung up and opened her laptop. Her next call was to Victoria Hayes, CEO of NextCore Solutions, VisionTech's largest competitor. They'd met at a tech conference 2 years ago and had maintained a cordial professional relationship. Victoria answered on the first ring, music and laughter in the background. Elena, Merry Christmas. This is unexpected. Victoria, I apologize for calling during the holiday, but I have a business proposition that can't wait. How would you like to acquire controlling interest in VisionTech? The music in the background cut off. I'm listening. I'm about to become the majority shareholder. 55%. I'm willing to sell to you at $75 million, 15% below market value, with the condition that the sale closes within 3 weeks and that David Chun is not retained in any capacity. Victoria's voice sharpened with interest. Why the discount? Because speed matters more than money, and because I want him out. What did he do to you? Elena's voice was ice. He forgot that I'm not just his wife. I'm his investor. Victoria laughed, a sound of pure delight. I'll have my team draw up an offer letter tomorrow. Merry Christmas, Elena. You just gave me the best gift I could ask for. Elena set the phone down and stared out at the Manhattan skyline. Snow swirled against the glass, the city glittering below like scattered diamonds. Somewhere out there, David was probably toasting champagne with his family, believing himself untouchable. He'd always underestimated her. Even now, he had no idea what he'd set in motion. Her phone buzzed. David. She watched it ring, his smiling face filling the screen. A photo from their honeymoon in Bali, both of them young and hopeful. She let it go to voicemail. Then another call. Another. A text. Where are you? Everyone's worried. Did something happen at work? Elena blocked his number and stood. She had work to do. The next 3 weeks were surgical. Marcus filed the divorce papers on December 26th, catching David completely off guard. The process server found him at VisionTech's headquarters, delivering the documents in front of his entire executive team. According to Marcus's investigator, David had gone white, stammering something about a misunderstanding, before locking himself in his office for 2 hours. The calls and texts to Elena's blocked number multiplied. He tried her office line, her assistant, even her sister. Elena ignored them all, communicating only through Marcus. David's attorney, a corporate lawyer named Richard Moss who specialized in mergers, not divorces, was outmatched from the start. Marcus buried him in motions, discovery requests, and procedural maneuvers that would take months to untangle. Meanwhile, Elena met with Victoria's team daily. The due diligence was a formality. Elena knew VisionTech's financials better than David did. She'd reviewed every quarterly report, every investor presentation, every growth projection. The company was valued at $95 million, making her 55% stake worth just over $52 million at market rate. She was taking a loss of $17 million to sell to Victoria, but the strategic value was priceless. On January 10th, David finally cornered her. He'd been waiting outside her office building, haggard and desperate. Elena emerged from a late meeting to find him in the lobby, his eyes red-rimmed and wild. Elena, please, we need to talk. She kept walking toward the exit, but he caught her arm. The security guard started forward, but Elena waved him off. She turned to face her husband for the first time in 2 weeks. You have 5 minutes, she said. They stood in the cold marble lobby, expensive art on the walls, the sound of the city muffled beyond the glass doors. David looked like he'd aged a decade. His suit was rumpled, his hair uncombed. This wasn't the confident entrepreneur she'd married. This was a man watching his life collapse. "I made a mistake," David said, his voice cracking. "Sophia, she doesn't mean anything. It was stupid. I was stressed and she was there and Elena, please, we can fix this. I'll end it. I'll do whatever you want." Elena's face remained impassive. "You stood in your father's study and told your family I was a mistake, that I was rigid, that I was just a banker who wrote a check. Do you remember saying that?" David's face went pale. You were there?" "I came early. I wanted to surprise everyone. Instead, I got the surprise." Elena's voice was clinical, detached. "You told them Sophia was giving you your real family, your heir. You said living with me was like living in a law firm. I didn't mean—" "Yes, you did." Elena stepped closer, and David flinched at the ice in her eyes. "You meant every word. You felt that way for months, maybe years. The only thing you regret is that I found out." "That's not true. I love you, Elena. I've always loved you. You love what I provided. Stability, money, status. But you never loved me." Elena adjusted her bag on her shoulder. "Your 5 minutes are up." "Wait." David grabbed her hand. "What about Vision Tech? What are you doing? My lawyers say you're claiming ownership of the company. That's insane. You can't just—" "Read the prenup, David. Clause 7.3. Your infidelity triggered the conversion terms. My family's $3.5 million loan is now 55% equity. I'm the majority shareholder." David's mouth opened and closed like a fish. That was theoretical. A worst-case scenario clause. You can't actually enforce that. It's not. It's ironclad. My father wrote it. Marcus verified it. 3 separate law firms have reviewed it. In 11 days, I'm selling my shares to Victoria Hayes at NextCore Solutions for $75 million. Elena pulled her hand free. "Merry Christmas, David." She walked out into the snow, leaving her husband standing frozen in the lobby. The emergency board meeting was scheduled for January 14th at 2 p.m. in VisionTech's glass-walled conference room overlooking the Hudson River. Elena arrived at 1:45 with Marcus, Victoria, and Victoria's chief legal counsel, a sharp-eyed woman named Patricia Chun, no relation to David, who carried a briefcase full of contracts. David was already there with his business partner Ryan Mitchell and their corporate attorney Richard Moss. Ryan was a brilliant coder who'd been David's college roommate, loyal to a fault. He looked confused and angry, shooting glances at Elena like she'd personally betrayed him. David looked worse than he had in the lobby, thinner, gray-faced, his hands shaking as he clutched a coffee cup. The other board members filtered in Jonathan Park, their lead investor, Susan Rodriguez, head of product development, and Michael Okonkwo, their CFO. All of them had received the meeting agenda 24 hours earlier. All of them looked grim. Jonathan cleared his throat. "Let's begin. Ms. Martinez, you called this meeting. The floor is yours." Elena stood, connecting her laptop to the presentation screen. Marcus and Victoria remained seated, silent pillars of support on either side of her. She pulled up the first slide, a copy of the prenuptial agreement, Clause 7.3 highlighted in yellow. On December 24th, Elena began, her voice steady and clear. "I discovered that my husband David Chun has been having an affair with his executive assistant Sophia Turner, who is currently pregnant with his child. Under the terms of our prenuptial agreement, this infidelity triggered an automatic conversion of my family trust's $3.5 million loan into equity, calculated at the company's Series A valuation. This gives me 55% controlling interest in VisionTech Solutions." Ryan shot to his feet. "That's ridiculous. You can't just—" "Sit down, Mr. Mitchell," Marcus said quietly. "Ms. Martinez has the floor." Ryan looked at David, who gestured weakly for him to sit. Elena advanced to the next slide, the share distribution chart showing her 55% stake in red. "As majority shareholder, I'm exercising my right to approve the sale of my equity to NextCore Solutions, effective January 25th. The sale price is $75 million. NextCore will assume majority control of VisionTech with the following terms. She clicked to the next slide. All current employees will be retained with their existing compensation packages and benefits. All current projects will continue under NextCore's management and resources. However, David Chun will not be retained in any capacity. His employment, along with his remaining equity stake, will be bought out at fair market value. The room erupted. Jonathan was shaking his head. Susan had her hand over her mouth. Michael was frantically typing on his laptop. Ryan was yelling something about hostile takeovers and betrayal. David just sat there, staring at the screen like he was watching his own execution. "This is insane," Ryan shouted over the chaos. "You can't do this out of revenge. The board won't approve." "The board doesn't have a choice," Patricia said, standing smoothly. "Ms. Martinez owns 55%. She only needs 41% to approve any major decision. This sale has already been approved by the majority shareholder. We're informing you as a courtesy and to allow you to arrange for the transition." "David, say something." Ryan turned to his friend desperately. "Fight this." David finally looked up, his eyes finding Elena across the table. "Can I speak to my wife privately?" "I'm not your wife," Elena said. "The divorce finalizes in 43 days. Please, Elena, just 5 minutes. Alone." Elena glanced at Marcus, who nodded slightly. 5 minutes. In the smaller conference room. They walked in silence down the hall to a glass-walled office that overlooked the city. Elena closed the door but didn't sit. David stood by the window, his back to her. "You're destroying everything I built," he said quietly. "No, I'm selling what I funded. There's a difference." David turned, and Elena was shocked to see tears on his face. "I know I hurt you. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. But VisionTech, Elena, this company is my entire life. It's everything I've worked for. Please, take the apartment. Take the cars. Take whatever money you want. But don't do this." Elena's expression didn't change. "You stood in your father's house and told them I was a glorified banker. That all I did was write a check. Do you remember? I was angry. I was scared about the baby and You told the truth," Elena interrupted. "That's what you really think of me, of my contribution. I gave you $3.5 million, David. I gave you my trust, my expertise, my contacts. I introduced you to half the investors in your cap table. I reviewed every contract, every partnership agreement. I worked weekends helping you prepare for board meetings while still managing my own caseload. And you reduced all of that to, she just wrote the check. I'm sorry. You're sorry you got caught. You're sorry there are consequences." Elena stepped closer. "Did you think I'd just accept it? That I'd quietly agree to a divorce, take some settlement money, and disappear? Did you think I was that weak?" "I never thought you were weak," David whispered. "I thought you loved me enough to forgive me. I did love you, past tense. But love doesn't mean letting you humiliate me and walk away with everything I helped you build." Elena checked her watch. "Your 5 minutes are up. The board is waiting for a vote. Elena, please. I'm begging you. There has to be another way." She looked at him for a long moment. This man she'd married. This stranger who'd betrayed her. There was another way. It was called being faithful. It was called respecting me. You chose a different path. Elena opened the door and walked back to the conference room, David trailing behind her like a ghost. The board members looked up as they entered, their faces a mixture of sympathy and resignation. "Let's vote," Elena said, retaking her seat. "All in favor of approving the sale to NextCore Solutions under the terms presented?" Elena, Victoria, and Patricia raised their hands. Jonathan hesitated, then raised his hand slowly. "The legal structure gives us no choice. I vote yes." Susan and Michael exchanged glances and raised their hands together. "Yes," they said in unison. Ryan's hand stayed down. "No, this is wrong and everyone knows it." David didn't raise his hand. He didn't vote at all. He just stared at the table, defeated. "The motion passes 6-1, Elena said. "The sale will close on January 25th. Patricia will coordinate with your legal team on the transition details. This meeting is adjourned." Victoria stood, extending her hand to Jonathan. "I'm excited to work with VisionTech's talented team. We have ambitious plans for integration and growth." Jonathan shook her hand weakly. "I'm sure you do." As the board members filed out, Ryan stopped in front of Elena. His face was flushed with anger. "You know what? David was right about you. You are cold. You're so obsessed with contracts and legal protection that you forgot how to be human. This," he gestured at the empty conference room, "this isn't justice. It's cruelty." Marcus started to stand, but Elena waved him down. She looked Ryan straight in the eye. "I protected myself because I knew what could happen. Your friend proved me right. If wanting legal clarity makes me cold, then I'd rather be cold than destroyed." Ryan shook his head and walked out. David lingered, opening his mouth to say something, then closing it again. Finally, he just turned and left, his shoulders hunched in defeat. Victoria put a hand on Elena's shoulder. "Are you okay?" Elena nodded. "I'm fine. Let's finalize the paperwork." Over the next 2 weeks, the tech industry erupted with gossip. VisionTech's dramatic sale to Nextcore hit TechCrunch, Wired, and the Wall Street Journal. The official story was that the founder had agreed to step down to pursue other opportunities. But insiders knew better. The Whisper Network, that invisible web of assistants and junior employees who knew everything, spread the truth. David Chen's pregnant mistress, the scorned wife's revenge, the prenup that changed everything. David's reputation crumbled overnight. Headhunters stopped calling. Networking contacts went cold. Investors who'd once courted him now avoided his emails. He'd gone from rising star to cautionary tale in 14 days. Sophia, according to Elena's investigator, she'd kept one on retainer, just to stay informed, was growing increasingly cold toward David. The reality of being tied to a man with no company, no prospects, and a massive public scandal was far less appealing than being the secret girlfriend of a successful CEO. She'd moved out of the hotel David had set up for her and back in with her parents in Queens. The baby was due in 4 months, and David was scrambling to find employment that could support child support payments. His family, Elena heard through mutual acquaintances, had essentially disowned him. His mother refused his calls. His father had publicly stated that David's choices were his own, and that the Park family would not be financially supporting his indiscretions. His sister had blocked him on all social media. Elena, meanwhile, was everywhere. The divorce settlement was finalized on February 14th. Marcus had insisted on the ironic date. Elena returned $40 million to her family trust, ensuring that her parents were repaid with a 10-to-1 return on their original investment. She donated $30 million to a consortium of women's legal organizations, establishing the Martinez Fellowship for women pursuing law degrees and facing financial barriers. The remaining $8 million went into her personal investment fund, which she was using to support female-founded startups in tech and finance. On March 3rd, Elena was invited to keynote the Women in Business Summit at the Javits Center. The event drew over 3,000 attendees, and Elena's speech, titled The Value of Protection, Why Women Must Advocate for Themselves, went viral within hours. Standing on stage in a tailored navy suit, her voice clear and confident, she spoke about the prenup, about trust and verification, about loving someone while still protecting yourself. "Someone told me recently that my insistence on legal clarity made me cold," Elena said, her voice carrying across the vast hall. "That wanting a prenup meant I didn't truly love my partner. But here's what I learned. Protecting yourself isn't a lack of love. It's an acknowledgement of reality. People change. Circumstances change. And having legal clarity doesn't prevent heartbreak. It prevents financial devastation on top of heartbreak." The audience erupted in applause. Elena smiled, feeling lighter than she had in months. "My father, a judge, once told me that contracts aren't about mistrust. They're about clarity. They're about both parties understanding what they're agreeing to. If someone truly loves you, they won't be threatened by your need to protect yourself. They'll understand it. They'll respect it. And if they won't sign a prenup or resist reasonable legal protection, that's information. Pay attention to it. After the speech, Elena fielded questions for 30 minutes. Women lined up at microphones throughout the hall, sharing their own stories of financial devastation after divorce, of trusting too much and protecting too little. Elena listened to each one, offering practical advice and legal referrals. She felt connected to these women, bonded by shared experience and hard-won wisdom. That night, alone in her newly purchased penthouse in Tribeca, she'd left the marital home to David as part of the settlement. Elena poured herself a glass of wine and stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. She almost deleted it without reading. Then curiosity got the better of her. It was David. "I watched your speech. You were right about everything. I'm sorry for who I was. I hope someday you can forgive me." Elena read it twice, then deleted it without responding. Forgiveness wasn't the point. Moving forward was. 6 months after Christmas Eve, Elena's life had transformed completely. Her law firm had promoted her to managing partner. Her investment fund had backed 4 successful startups, all founded by women who'd faced their own professional setbacks and comebacks. She'd started dating again. Nothing serious, just dinners and conversations with interesting people who respected her boundaries and admired her strength. David, according to the occasional update from mutual acquaintances, was working as a project manager at a mid-sized tech firm, a significant step down from CEO. Sophia had given birth to a boy in April. They were living together in a modest apartment in Astoria, trying to make it work for the baby's sake. But those who'd seen them said the relationship was strained and joyless. David supported his son financially, but seemed emotionally distant, still mourning the life he'd destroyed. His family had gradually allowed limited contact, but the warmth was gone. He was invited to family gatherings but treated with cool politeness, a black sheep who'd embarrassed the Parks in the most public way possible. His mother, Elena Heard, had reached out to Elena to apologize, saying she tried to raise her son better and was ashamed of his choices. Elena had written back graciously, thanking her former mother-in-law and wishing her well. There was no anger left, just a distant memory of pain and the satisfaction of knowing she'd protected herself when it mattered most. On a warm evening in late June, Elena attended a rooftop fundraiser for one of the organizations she'd donated to. The Manhattan skyline stretched endlessly in every direction, the sun setting in shades of orange and pink. She was talking with a young lawyer named Michaela who'd received one of the Martinez fellowships when someone tapped her shoulder. She turned to find David standing there, looking older and sadder than she remembered. He was holding a glass of sparkling water. Apparently he'd stopped drinking, and wearing a suit that had seen better days. "Elena, I didn't know you'd be here. I'm one of the sponsors," she said evenly. "What are you doing here?" "My firm bought a table. Team-building event." David glanced at Michaela, who was watching with undisguised curiosity. "Could we talk? Just for a moment." Elena excused herself and walked with David to a quieter corner of the rooftop. The city glittered below them, full of possibility and promise. She waited for him to speak. "I wanted to tell you in person," David said. "I'm grateful. I know that sounds insane given everything that happened. But this past 6 months, it's been hell, but it's also been clarifying. I was a terrible husband. I took you for granted. I thought I was entitled to everything I had without acknowledging how much of it came from you." Elena didn't respond, just watched him with calm, assessing eyes. "Sophia and I are ending things," David continued. "She deserves someone who loves her completely, and I'm not capable of that right now. I'll support my son financially and be present in his life. But the relationship with his mother is over. She knows I'm still in love with you." "David, I'm not asking for anything," he said quickly. "I'm not asking for another chance or forgiveness or even friendship. I just wanted you to know that you were right. About everything. About the prenup, about protecting yourself, about not trusting pretty words without legal backing. You were smarter than me in every way, and I was too arrogant to see it." Elena took a breath, choosing her words carefully. "I appreciate you saying that, truly. But we're not getting back together. That part of my life is over. I know. I needed you to hear that I understand now. What I destroyed. What I threw away. David's voice cracked slightly. For whatever it's worth, I'm proud of what you're doing. The fellowships, the fund, the keynote speeches. You're changing lives. You always had that power, but I was too self-absorbed to celebrate it. Thank you, Elena said softly. I hope you find peace, David. I hope you become a good father to your son. I hope you learn from this. I'm trying. David managed a sad smile. For what it's worth, you look happy. That makes this a little easier. He walked away, disappearing back into the crowd of fundraiser guests. Elena watched him go, feeling nothing but a distant sense of closure. Michaela appeared at her elbow, eyes wide. Was that my ex-husband? Elena confirmed. It's a long story. I read about it. Everyone in the program did. You're kind of a legend. Michaela grinned. The prenup that saved your life. We studied it in my contracts class as an example of effective legal drafting. Elena laughed, genuinely amused. I hope it teaches people to protect themselves. It does. Trust me. Michaela raised her glass. To you, Elena, and to all of us learning to advocate for ourselves. Elena clinked her glass against Michaela's, feeling the last weight of her old life lift away. She'd been betrayed, humiliated, and underestimated. But she'd also been prepared, strategic, and strong. She'd protected herself when it mattered most, and now she was building something new, something entirely her own. As the sun set over Manhattan and the party continued around her, Elena realized she wasn't just surviving. She was thriving, and that, more than any revenge, was the truest victory of all. If the story resonated with you, if it made you think about protection and self-advocacy in your own life, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever had to protect yourself in a relationship? What would you have done in Elena's position? Your stories matter, and this community is built on supporting each other through life's most challenging moments. Hit that notification bell so you never miss our next story. And remember, protecting yourself isn't cold. It's wisdom. The months continued to pass, each one bringing Elena further from the pain of Christmas Eve and closer to the woman she was meant to become. She'd learned the difference between love and ownership, between trust and naivety, between forgiveness and self-abandonment. David had taught her those lessons the hard way, but she'd transformed them into strength. And somewhere across the city, in a modest apartment with a crying baby and a failing relationship, David Chun was learning his own lessons. That consequences are patient, that respect matters more than control, and that some mistakes can't be unmade. They can only be learned from. Elena never looked back. She only looked forward, toward the life she was building brick by brick, contract by contract, victory by victory. And it was more beautiful than anything she'd left behind.